Hello and welcome to Tête-à-Tête, France 24's flagship interview show. Our guest is Tom Fletcher. He is the United Nations Under-Secretary General for Humanitarian Affairs, and he joins us from N'Djamena, the capital of Chad. Thank you very much, Mr. Fletcher.
Thank you for having me on. Great to be here.
You're just back from a visit to neighboring Sudan, a country ravaged by a brutal and largely forgotten civil war. In late October, the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces of General Hemeti took control of the town of El-Fasher. It's the capital of North Darfur. The town had been besieged by the RSF for 1 year and a half. Since then, at least 90,000 have fled and are recounting their ordeal. You met some of them. Tell us what they told you.
Well, as you say, it's a horror show. It's the epicenter right now of global suffering, of pain. I met so many survivors of El-Fasher, at least those who could escape. And in many ways, they're the lucky ones. We don't know what's happening to those who are still trapped inside El-Fasher. And they told me stories of mass executions, of sexual violence as a weapon of war, of torture, of horrendous brutality, and this sense that there is complete impunity, that the people carrying out these atrocities could act without any danger of accountability for what they've done. It was utterly terrifying to hear those stories.
As you say, the RSF even filmed some of the crimes, and the UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk told this week the Human Rights Council that bloodstains on the ground in El-Fasher could be seen from space. I mean, you've been to many rough and tough places. How difficult was it for you to hear what you heard?
It was very difficult, and Volker's absolutely right to highlight that Yale lab footage, because we haven't been able yet to get the investigators in to see what's really going on in El-Fasher. And so it was a very, very hard visit. We traveled for 2 days. We were on the road for 2 days to get there. It's an incredibly precarious route, but it's nothing like as difficult as the route out of El-Fasher, which is shorter, but much more dangerous when the survivors have to run the gauntlet between these different armed militia members who take everything from them and attack them. I met one mother who was escaping with her neighbor's baby and was attacked on that road, a malnourished baby, and she herself had her leg broken by gang members. I mean, this is brutality and impunity at its very, very worst. And all of it, or so much of it, filmed. It's box office brutality.
Right. What are you asking for? Access to El-Fasher, where, as you said, tens of thousands are still being stranded. A senior RSF official said that you actually had refused to go to El-Fasher and disappointed many of its inhabitants. What's your response?
I'm asking for several things. I'm asking for protection of all civilians. I'm asking for investigation of these atrocities in El-Fasher and protection of civilians from the next atrocity. And we fear that others in Tawila and the Kordofans are vulnerable to future attacks. I want accountability for those who fired the weapons, for those who gave them the instruction to fire, and I want those who provided the weapons to take a long, hard look in the mirror and act more responsibly in the future. And I want us to get safe passage for our convoys of aid to get into El-Fasher, but to get everywhere in Sudan. This was the main purpose of my visit, negotiating those access agreements so we can get those convoys on the road. And then, of course, I need the funding. Our program in Sudan is only 32% funded. We're suffering from budget cuts globally. All I'm asking for globally is 1% of what the world spends on arms, weapons, guns, and it's still not coming. So I need all of those things so that we can begin to give a credible response, because people in El-Fasher said to me, will we get the help we need? Is the world coming? I want to be able to say yes.
What about your alleged refusal to go to El-Fasher? What's your response to that accusation?
So we're ready to go to El-Fasher. We want to get in with our humanitarian teams. I know that the investigation teams from the UN Commission on Human Rights and elsewhere are keen to get in too. We have to go in when the conditions are right. And that means the security conditions have to be in place. We have to obviously recce the roads and clear munition and so on. But also we have to make sure that our aid won't be instrumentalized, that we can operate in a completely neutral, impartial, independent way. And we're working around the clock. We're talking to everyone. I'm talking to the RSF, of course, as part of that, to make sure that those conditions are in place as quickly as possible.
Can you tell us about the interaction, as you just pointed out, with the RSF? Have you met with General Hemeti? And if so, what did they promise you?
So I've spoken to General Hemeti. I've also spoken several times in the last few weeks, actually, to the senior civilian leader of their administration. And I also talked to their representatives on the ground who paid me a surprise visit when I was visiting Korma, very close to El-Fasher. And we had a robust conversation. I talked to them about accountability. I talked to them about the need to stop the atrocities. And I talked to them about the vital importance of safe passage for our aid in, but also for civilians out. And at the moment, we're not seeing that.
What was their answer? Did they commit to full access, full accountability, or do you think they're just trying to maybe think about future battles and future fights with the other part of the conflict?
So I feel more confident as a result of those conversations that we will get access. I don't want to put a timeline on it, but I'm thinking about days rather than months for us to get in and start to respond to these massive needs of the survivors. We're making progress, and we made progress during our conversation, and I hope that we'll have better news soon. The people of El-Fasher can't wait.
I want to turn to Gaza. We're essentially a month after the ceasefire. Obvious question, has the humanitarian situation and especially the entry of aid into the Gaza Strip improved since then?
It has. It has improved since the ceasefire. That's why we welcome President Trump's plan. It's why I was at Sharm el-Sheikh working with world leaders on delivering on point 9 of that plan, which is that UN-led humanitarian response. So it's a start. We're getting in much more than we were getting in before, but it's nothing like enough. We still need all of the crossings open. We have half the crossings, 3 out of 6 open. We need access for our NGO partners and the entire UN family so that we can genuinely scale up to the levels required. I'm really worried at the moment about winter. We need to get more shelter materials in, more fuel, more clothing to help people stay warm through what will be a very wet, cold winter ahead. So halfway through the 60-day plan that I outlined just before I visited Gaza last month, it's a beginning, but it's not enough.
Right. This Monday, the UN Security Council approved President Trump's peace plan for Gaza. Will it make any difference for everyday life in Gaza? Yes, there are many issues, the stabilization force, and so on and so forth. But from your standpoint, will it make a difference or not?
I hope so, and I think so. Actually, I think it's a welcome resolution. It's an instruction from the Security Council to us on what we need to do next. And it bakes into the plan that the UN must have this unfettered humanitarian access, which we've been asking for months and has been denied to us by Israel for so long. Now, and since the ceasefire, we're starting to build up that access, and we're determined to use it to save as many survivors as we can of this horror show that has taken place in Gaza.
Right. So did you get some guarantees from the US and maybe even from Israel that UN agencies and major NGOs will be the ones in charge of delivering humanitarian aid? Obviously, everyone has in mind the episode of the US and Israel-backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. Are they out of the equation? Are you back in and in the driver's seat?
So I don't know about other organizations, but I do know that I've had daily conversations with some of the most senior American partners on this. They're doing great work in trying to get this agreement implemented. We're in very, very close consultation with their coordinators inside Israel who are overseeing the delivery of aid. And I'm very encouraged by how that partnership is going. It's a very pragmatic, practical partnership. They're helping us to deal with many of the obstacles, many of the roadblocks, literally roadblocks, and obstacles that have been put in our way for so long now. And I want to build on that in a spirit of partnership, because it's in the interests of getting this deal done, making the peace plan stick, which the Americans, the White House in particular, are very keen to see delivered. But it's also very clearly in the interests of those civilians that need that help so badly.
Right. Obviously, there have been lots of reports coming from Israel, essentially, or allegations, I should say, that aid was being looted by Hamas. Are there still concerns over this issue, or do you think that now this issue is now out of the way?
So I've always said that if we're allowed to get aid in a scale that will deal with any of the looting that there is, when in the period when we were being denied the entry of very much aid at all, we had a bit of looting, mainly from civilians, mainly from desperate civilians, or the gangs in the Israeli-controlled areas near the Kerem Shalom checkpoint. We're seeing much, much, much less looting right now. And as I always say, if Israel has evidence of looting, please share it with us, because no one cares more than we do about our convoys of aid reaching civilians and reaching them in a neutral, independent, impartial way. We don't want that aid to get to Hamas. We want it to get to the people who so badly need it.
Tom Fletcher, I want to thank you very much for being our guest from N'Djamena in Chad, and thank you all for watching this edition of Tête à Tête here on France 24.